let's get into a conversation around spurring innovation on the USDC platform. So what we wanted to do is essentially summarize a lot of the content that we covered in this whole conference all the way up until today. So we're actually going to start this presentation where Jeremy Allaire started the whole conference. And we're going to talk about the internet's evolution to Web3 from a high-level perspective, and then get a little bit nitty-gritty into our underlying architecture of USDC. So I'm not sure if they saved the best for last or the worst for last, but we'll find out in the next hour here. And the whole idea here, spurring innovation on the USDC platform, is given the audience in the crowd is developer-focused, technical-focused, it's essentially spurring ideas from you all on what you could build on the USDC platform by showcasing what the USDC platform is. So just a little bit of background. My name is Ian Melhorn. I'm the crypto and blockchain training lead at Circle. We launched Circle University at this conference. You guys probably heard about that. We'll get into a little bit of the curriculum before we do a deep dive on the presentation here. A little bit about my background. Started at Callahan & Associates. It's a credit union and consulting firm, bank consulting firm, financial services. Finished my MBA at University of Maryland while I was there, and did a capstone project on crypto and blockchain and how it would impact financial services moving forward. Then I went to Bittrex cryptocurrency exchange from there. This is kind of my first professional foray in the crypto scene, leading the compliance department, helped build their compliance protocols at the exchange. This is when Bittrex was one of the largest exchanges, especially for the altcoin space. Then I got recruited to go to the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, financial regulator in the space. We all know the interactions going on with the crypto ecosystem and the SEC currently. Shout out Nick, policy and regulatory coverage at CoinDesk back here as well. And then I went and did my own coding and programming at George Washington University, did a deep dive fintech program there, and you can find some of my project work and dApps at github.com/IJMelhorn if you want to look at some of that. And then where we're at now, at Circle, at this amazing conference. So how many of you have been here since Tuesday, like I have? All right. And what about showing up today? Any specific developers just for today? All right, that's awesome to see. So let's get into this a little bit here. So what we're going to talk about is the crypto literacy course from a high level, just to give you all a little bit more context about the announcements that we made so far. And really for this audience, it's essentially an evolutionary journey of developments over time in the crypto sector, all the way to where we're at today. So this goes through the infrastructure layers across blockchains and alternative layer 1s, L2s, layer 0s. Then we go up into the application layer, and we're going to detail the course curriculum here shortly. From there, what we're going to advance into is essentially talking about why we are all here. At this conference, in this industry, what are we doing in this architecture, and where can we go from this point? And this all gets into the power shifts happening within the internet. And like I mentioned, Jeremy Allaire opened up the conference speaking about this. We're going to bring in some visuals so you all can see what this means a little bit more deeply here. And then from there, we're going to talk about why USDC. So where does USDC fit into this Web3 dApp stack that we're going to showcase here, and the different types of layers and what the applications look like kind of underneath the hood? And why USDC? Why build on the USDC platform? And then we're going to finish with what can you do as developers and builders within this ecosystem, probably the most important people in the ecosystem. So we're going to help kind of empower you to build on the USDC platform. So my goal isn't to tell you what to build or tell you how to build on the USDC platform. A lot of the other sessions up to today kind of taught you that. We just had an awesome Circle API session across the highway there, right across the path. And some of our colleagues went over our 3 different APIs. We're going to touch on that, but this is more looking at underneath the hood and what this platform looks like conceptually. So my job, or my goal, is to tell you why you should build on the USDC platform in this presentation. So let's get into the Circle U crypto literacy course curriculum. So what we wanted to do is essentially take learners on this journey from the history of money. This is the first course, and each course has lessons underneath the main topic here. Each one takes about an hour or so to get through. There's a lot of content through this whole crypto literacy curriculum. Evolution of money, prehistoric all the way up until Bitcoin and blockchain. And that's course 2. So we go into the underlying mechanics of the Bitcoin blockchain and proof of work and wallet generation and how all of that occurs. Then course 3 is the Ethereum and tokenization phase. So again, think about this as industry evolution. So what happened from evolution of money to the launch of Bitcoin 2008, 2009, to Ethereum and smart contracts and programmability and tokenization. And then from there, what we saw in the industry was the launch of alternative L1s and layers and interoperability infrastructure. So this means L1s such as Ethereum and Solana and Avalanche and Algorand. And then we get into L2s as well. We just announced we're launching on Optimistic and a few other L2s for USDC. And we also get into layer zeros. Think about Cosmos here and Polkadot as the underlying architecture and kind of the hub of different blockchains. And the interoperability infrastructure, so think bridges here, and we just announced our cross-chain transfer protocol. I like to call it CCTP, and we'll get more into that in a little bit as well. And then from there, after we cover the infrastructure layers of the ecosystem, we jump up a little bit and go into the application layers. And actually this talk, we're going to cover this module specifically, some of the content around that before we really peek under the hood of USDC. So Web 3, this internet's evolution, Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, and then the applications or constructs off of that, which currently are DeFi, NFTs, and DAOs. And then we finish with policy and regulation, where we're at today in the ecosystem, all about interfacing with regulators, policymakers. We have the Stablecoin Act, being worked out currently. We have the Digital Commodities Act. All of that is happening today. So this is that evolutionary perspective of industry developments over time. And then we actually finish with a Web3 tutorial. So this is hands-on activities in the ecosystem across Ethereum blockchain and Solana and different types of dApps interactions and wallet interactions. And this is the hands-on part. So after you complete course 1 through 6, you then have the opportunity to get hands-on in the ecosystem. So we just wanted to give you a little bit of background of what this crypto literacy course is, what is Circle U that you've been hearing about at this conference. This is that. And just for a little bit more context, myself and Ramiro, who is also in the crowd here, we were the ones to develop all of this content together. All right, so why are we all here? Why are we here in this room, especially you developers and builders in the ecosystem and creators and entrepreneurs? And what does this look like in terms of the power shifts happening within the internet and the empowering factor that crypto and blockchains unlock for all of us in human society? So let's start with this high-level overview of the internet phases. So this is kind of a summary slide, and then we're going to jump into Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3 individually right after this. So Web 1 was the beginning of the internet where websites were very simple, and they had limited interactivity. So it was built on these open protocols in this decentralized fashion. So this is how kind of the early internet was built. And then Web 2 was marked by the rise of mobile phones and social networks and cloud computing and e-commerce. And all of this actually increased the centralization aspect, and it became an issue. So these powerful tech corporations are harvesting and monetizing our user data in this Web 2 phase. Web 3, where we're all here, what we're doing in this industry, is this evolution of the internet that's operating on top of crypto networks, and it's shifting the power away from these centralized entities in the Web 2 era back to decentralized operations that we saw in the Web 1 era. So the internet has already solved for individuals communicating with each other and enabling the frictionless transfer of communication and information through these open protocols. But now the challenge ahead of us, and something USDC and Circle we're trying to solve for as well, is the frictionless transfer of value. So this is what open public blockchains are working to solve for, is this frictionless exchange of value. All right, so Web 1, let's do a little bit of a deep dive here. So this is the early internet from the 1980s to the 2000s. This is referred to as Web 1, early 2000s. And then this was born out of work that actually began with DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. So this is how the internet started. And they were researching on these protocols that would allow computers to communicate over a distributed network. So DARPA is a technology branch of the US Department of Defense, and it's responsible for the development of emerging tech for the use of the military. So this is the genesis of the internet. And many of these early web protocols that just flew on the screen here, HTTP for websites, SMTP for emails, and FTP for file transfers, think TCP/IP as well, these open protocols, these serve as the foundation of the internet, and these modern applications that we use today are built on these open protocols. So the earliest version of the web was decentralized. So it meant building on top of these distributed open protocols, which is very important, which is why we keep saying this. And during Web 1, consumers could only read the content online. They couldn't yet interact with it. So this is known as the read-only era. And then we have Web 2. So think early 2000s all the way up to where we're at today, and we're transitioning into Web 3, and this is becoming more and more of a factor, and that's why we're all here. So the internet began to become more dynamic in Web 2. So users could consume and interact with, they could begin to create content and publish content themselves, serve it to the internet. So Web 2 saw this explosion of the use of smartphones as well, as we highlighted earlier. So the problem is most of our internet use now is through these mobile apps and computer software powered by a handful of powerful tech corporations. This means the internet became increasingly centralized. So our internet activity is being stored on these servers controlled by these companies. And we've seen our data being harvested and monetized in many different ways, selling off to advertisers and breaches. All of this is occurring. So as the saying goes, if the product is free to use, then you are the product. So then what's Web 3? So this is the next version of the internet that we're transferring into. So rather than relying on these centralized servers, Web 3 is built on top of open public blockchain crypto networks. And this enables data to be stored in a distributed fashion using these public blockchains. So think of HTTP, SMTP that we just covered, FTP, TCP/IP. These open public blockchain networks are essentially the next layer to this open protocol stack. You can almost think of it as an MTP, or money transfer protocol, money transition protocol. So Web 3 enables read, write, and own in terms of ownership of shared financial interest and digital property rights through the use of tokens. So along with ownership of our data and identity, and this is known as self-sovereign or decentralized identity, We just had another session of our decentralized identity protocol, Verity, and how to build and incorporate that into your project a little bit earlier today. So instead of building these siloed products like we're seeing in Web 2, Web 3 is built for interoperability and communication and transfer between these blockchains. So Web 3 is about re-architecting internet services and products so that they benefit people like us rather than the big corporations and entities. So now that we laid the foundation of the evolution of the internet all the way to where we're at today in Web 3, let's get into some of these constructs or applications under this Web 3 umbrella that essentially blockchain created or enables. And the power shifts occurring across, let's say, DeFi, decentralized finance, NFTs, non-fungible tokens, DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. We hear these buzzwords so many times in the industry. So it's important to note that the current constructs that blockchains enable, these are the ones we're seeing today, but it's not going to be the only ones. We're going to see many more pop up in the ecosystem, and hopefully a lot of you in the crowd as the builders and developers of the architecture and smart contracts underpinning all of this, hopefully you all are the ones that think of these apps and constructs that may not have been thought of so far today. All right, so a little bit about DeFi. So DeFi is this developing area at the intersection of blockchain, digital assets, smart contracts, and financial services all in one. So DeFi protocols seek to disintermediate traditional finance through the use of familiar and novel approaches. And these protocols are making transactions easier and cheaper and more secure without the use of intermediaries, which is so powerful when we talk about these open public networks and removing these powerful tech corporations. So these intermediaries are replaced by smart contracts. We just saw Near up here right before this, showcasing JavaScript smart contracts, and many of you are following along with that. It's amazing to see you all kind of build those type of smart contracts and products in the ecosystem. And these apps are completely interoperable with each other. So they can be programmed to work with other DeFi apps in the ecosystem. And this is referred to as money Legos or composability within DeFi. So all of these DeFi apps are like individual Lego pieces that can be integrated and worked with each other to build something new very quickly. Instead of reinventing the wheel, you pull code off of GitHub, fork it, and create your own additions to that. So just kind of opening up to the audience a little bit, what are some DeFi sectors that we've heard of so far today? So for an example, we have DEXs, decentralized exchanges. Throw some more out here just to start spurring some ideas and sector analysis a bit before we advance. What else is in DeFi? Go ahead. DAOs? So DAOs can govern DeFi applications, and we'll get into that a little bit here. What else is DeFi? Say it again? On-chain borrowing and lending, that's a huge aspect of DeFi, and USDC kind of fits into that piece as the most trusted collateral asset within those projects. Anything else? It's hard to actually see you all. So think of derivatives, asset management, insurance, aggregators, all of that is in the DeFi sector. And hopefully seeing you kind of build all of that moving forward and moving that progression even better than where we're at today. And it's all about disintermediation is what we're seeing. So let's get into NFTs a bit. So society is moving towards this digital world. We hear a lot about the metaverse, and entertainment and creativity are becoming digitized and memorialized on blockchain platforms. So NFTs introduced many more individuals into the world of blockchain and cryptocurrencies and smart contracts that brought a whole new sector of mainstream audience into this ecosystem. And this is why we say, I can't wait to see you all kind of build out new constructs and apps, because we need something different. And this has kind of been a key theme. We need something different that brings a whole new set of participants in the ecosystem. So just try to think going down that thought path a little bit. So what they're doing is they're transforming the way that creators offer their goods and services to buyers, or even the ways that we interact with each other on the internet. So with the younger and more tech-savvy generation moving offline activities online, and data moving from off-chain to on-chain, NFTs are disrupting and transforming the way we experience culture and trends and interactions in our everyday lives. So we're also beginning to see NFT integrations more and more into DeFi lending and borrowing as well, as we just shouted out here. So this is another novel approach that is starting to occur in the ecosystem. So think of other NFT projects. We have profile picture NFTs, which are booming and very popular. We have, gaming and sports, and another sector to keep your eye on is music NFTs. And definitely there's a lot of opportunity there. And we all know about the metaverse as well. We're not going to get too far into that. So then if blockchains and DeFi protocols, smart contracts and dApps, if all of these are tools within the ecosystem, DAOs are the groups that use these tools to create new things. So DAOs create this lower barrier opportunity to have participants around the globe come together and coordinate assets and ideas to pursue any cause that they desire. And this is a powerful aspect in this global world, to have a substrate kind of connecting each individual. And this is what we say, things happening from off-chain are starting to migrate on-chain. So DAOs are this new way to finance projects, to govern communities, as we just talked about, to share value. Let's kind of break this acronym down a little bit. So we have decentralized. What did DAO stand for? Decentralized Autonomous Organizations. Decentralized meaning online, global, distributed. And then we have autonomous or self-governing, or this is the use of smart contracts aspect within this. And then organization, so coordination and collaboration around these shared objectives. This is what DAOs kind of enable. And then think of other DAO types within the ecosystem. Can anybody shout out different sectors or types of DAOs that you've experienced or maybe have joined or started? Service DAOs. And even throw out some names as well. Maker DAO is one. Philanthropy DAOs, I like that, yeah. And then we have protocol DAOs, investment DAOs, collector DAOs. All of this innovation is happening within the ecosystem. So what's the most trusted on-chain digital dollar underpinning a vast majority of these Web3 applications and innovations? As you heard for the past couple of days now, it's USDC. So it's already widely used by we have around 50 billion or so, give or take, in circulation currently. And we've grown more than 50 times in the past 2 years. Just think about where we're going. As somebody mentioned, Chief Revenue Officer Cash mentioned that Jeremy, anytime that somebody asks him, what is the utility or what are the use cases with USDC or with with USDC? And as you heard, his response is, well, what's the use cases with the US dollar? It's essentially where we're going, is anything that the dollar can do in the real world, USDC will be able to enable in this blockchain infrastructure on-chain world. So USDC is this open platform for digital dollars running on this global, always-on infrastructure. And we're going to get more technical as we move forward here. So developers like you build on the USDC platform and connect your products and applications to this Uber Money API. And we'll touch on our 3 different APIs. And this delivers 24/7 liquidity and near instant payments to anyone with an internet connection. So I encourage you all to go to ecosystem.circle.com. Feel free to pull out your phones or your laptops, ecosystem.circle.com. And look at all of the ways that developers are building on the USDC platform. And again, hopefully this kind of spurs some ideas for all of you all to build on the platform or integrate your products into USDC. So ecosystem.circle.com. And as you're building your project, feel free to submit it. There's an option to submit your project into this if you're incorporating USDC. So that way your product is showcased in this ecosystem catalog. All right, so why USDC? So we talked about, all the way leading up to this from a high level, getting a little bit more micro and a little bit more technical, and we're going to peek under the hood into what is USDC? What is this platform that you've heard multiple times throughout this conference? And to help conceptualize this, we're going to introduce the Web3 dApp stack in kind of a rudimentary fashion, and we're going to add to that in a little bit. And we're just going to look at our underlying architecture, our microservices, and the collection of services underpinning USDC that you build on top of. And that whole thing is the platform. So this is the Web3 dApp stack, and it's not all encompassing. There's a few things missing here, but it should provide a good framework as to the different layers in the decentralized app stack conceptually. So we're going to look at this from the back end to the front end, or the bottom up. So we have the blockchain layer, and this contains the transaction histories and the current state of accounts on the network. And I say blockchains in the sense that we're going to get into the chains that support USDC. It could be multiple blockchains down here in this level. Then you have the digital assets layer, or USDC, along with other coins and fungible and non-fungible tokens here. So think token standards and built-in token primitives into the blockchain. That all fits within this ecosystem. And then here, conceptually, you see that USDC is a core building block for any crypto project if this is the dApp stack across the economy. So this serves as this trusted, interoperable, and highly liquid digital dollar for thousands of projects, as you see in the ecosystem catalog here. So just think of this as a core layer within the dApp stack. You need some type of on-chain digital dollar connecting the fiat world to the crypto world and back out. So from there, you have the protocol level. You have the collection of smart contracts that provide this value transfer functionality on top of this. So think a DeFi service that enables decentralized exchange of assets. Think Uniswap. Uniswap is essentially a collection or amalgamation of 30,000 different smart contracts for the token swap process, for liquidity pools. That is the Uniswap protocol. And that's where this lives. So we just announced in this conference, we announced our CCTP, cross-chain transfer protocol, to move USDC across these different blockchains seamlessly and frictionlessly. That's in this protocol layer, cross-chain transfer protocol. And then from there, we have the applications. So think, the GUIs, the websites, the APIs used to access and manage these protocols in the bottom stack here. So can anybody think of something that's missing in this stack? When you guys are building your products and your applications, what else would you add into this stack here? There's a few things missing. I can throw out some, but anybody have an idea? Security encryption, crypto aspect of it all. Think wallet connect, connecting a wallet here to your application, to your front end. Think, Oracle's bringing off-chain data on-chain. There's a lot you can add here, but this is the good, framework just to think about the dApp stack here. So with this framework in mind, let's take a look at, our front end all the way down to our back end and our underlying architecture with Circle and USDC. And we're going to start with our APIs here and kind of our product suite at a high level. And like we just mentioned, we had a session, The Power of Circle APIs, right across here, that went deep into how to actually integrate and utilize these APIs. So I'm not going to get too deep here. But just think about 3 different APIs within the Circle account that you connect your application to. So we have payments in the center left here. We have accounts and payouts APIs. So payments API, this enables you to accept card transactions and other traditional fiat payments that settle in USDC. And then you have the accounts API. So this enables you to create sub-accounts and manage USDC or even Bitcoin and Ethereum balances for your global customer base. As you deploy your projects and start, getting more clientele and utilization of your projects, you'll likely need some type of sub-account architecture. And then you have the payouts API. So think, how to send fast, low-cost payouts to your customers, your vendors, your suppliers. This is enabled through the payouts API, essentially transferring from the USDC architecture in our system out to the real world. So one of the bigger questions we get all the time is, how does USDC actually work? So there's 4 primary steps here. So we, enable, on-chain digital dollars. So we bring money into this system. So through our APIs, those 3 APIs we just mentioned, we're on-ramping or upgrading fiat currency into USDC. And the way we do that is through, traditional payment rails. Think credit cards, wire transfers, ACH. All of that is enabled and processed through our APIs. And then from there, we move the on-ramped money to our reserves. So we park that in our reserves. This gets into our one-to-one backing. We're not going to get fully into that. You should know that by now, being here at a USDC Circle conference. And then we mint the corresponding amount of USDC on our supported blockchains. And we're going to get into what the minting process actually looks like underneath the hood here shortly. And then from there, we credit that USDC to the customer's account, to your account as you integrate into the platform. So USDC is available natively on 8 different blockchains. You can have a 9th as a wrapped asset on Polygon. We just announced 5 more across layer 2s and layer 0s coming here shortly. So we're expanding in this multi-chain world. And as you can see here, transaction times for USDC are very quick. Solana takes less than half a second to process the transaction, all the way to the slowest to the right here, which happens to be Ethereum, even after the merge. But you could see, once you upgrade your fiat currency into USDC in this on-chain economy, transactions occur very quickly, as opposed to what happens in the traditional fiat world. And this is, all enabled through the payments API, payouts APIs, and accounts APIs to bring it into the system on top of these chains. So as we just reviewed, Circle has taken this multi-chain approach in deploying USDC on various blockchains here. So we started off on Ethereum as an ERC20 token. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that token standard. And we expanded from there. So for EVM compatible chains, so think Ethereum virtual machine, any chain that enables that to be compatible, think Flow here as well. USDC is supported and is deployed via these token standards and smart contracts that we wrote to be able to have this integration. So for non-EVM chains, so think Stellar, Algorand, some of those here, Solana, USDC uses built-in token primitives to the chain. So keep in mind, all of these token standards and primitives have mint and burn functions embedded within the code. And we're going to get into what actually happens when we mint and burn USDC. So let's talk about this platform and kind of conceptualize our architecture underneath the hood here. So the platform that you're building on top of or integrating your project into is essentially this collection of microservice architecture across fiat rails and the crypto world. So the public API requests come in through the 3 different APIs we mentioned. And through our wallets API, so the 3 APIs come in through our wallets API. This effectuates this sequence of operations from there underneath the hood. So our APIs are essentially moving money into our system from different sources out here in the traditional world. And then we also enable money to be moved back out. Think the bridge into cryptocurrency or the bridge back out to the traditional fiat world. So the Wallets API works as a proxy to 3 different services. We have Payment Processor, we have TX Core, and EFT. So we're not going to go in too deep into this architecture here, but we're going to highlight a few of them just so you can conceptually see what's actually happening underneath the hood. So EFT is the kind of traditional fiat rail, electronic funds transfer, interacting with Silvergate or Checkout or any of the other partnerships in the real world. TX Core that you see in the middle here, I'm going to go back. TX Core is a state management device that manages the state of transactions and accounts in our system. So EFT is the interface up the top right. That's why it's green. It's in the traditional fiat world. This is the interface to the cards and banking system. Then if we open this up a little bit more into the crypto side of our architecture, we have ARC that just popped up. Stablecoin issuer, that should be easy to understand what's happening there. That actually is the issuance of the stablecoin. But ARC interfaces with the crypto and blockchain world. So you can see we have each crypto has its own client that interacts with the nodes across these 8 different blockchains that we just covered that USDC is deployed on. And we run 3 to 5 nodes across each one of these blockchains. So this is the platform underneath the hood. Again, we're not going to get into nitty-gritty details with all of this, but just conceptually think about what you're building on top of. So then how does the minting process work? So when money comes into our system and we need to deploy USDC on-chain and mint a token on-chain across these 8 different blockchains, what actually happens in the lens of this underlying architecture? So what minting really means is that whenever somebody sends us $1 US, let's just say, for example, we want to correspondingly create 1 USDC on the blockchain. So given our full reserve backing design, we have cash and short-term treasuries backing USDC parked in accounts. TX Core USDC on-chain balance has to be equal to the USDC sum in our database, in our Postgres database. So just think about these 2 synergies here, what's happening on-chain and what's happening in the database. So if TX Core receives USDC from a customer through, let's just say, a credit card settlement, or if TX Core receives USDC from US dollar, from a customer via, let's just say, could be ACH, could be credit card, or something else, money coming into our system, US dollars coming into our system. It then needs to effectuate this process to mint an equivalent amount of USDC on-chain so that its balance, its on-chain balance, is equal to its balance sum in our database. This is at 1-to-1 here. So the minting process looks like this. We have TX Core requests the mint from stablecoin issuer. Then stablecoin issuer calls ARC to route to the appropriate crypto client depending on which chain the USDC is on. So the mint actually happens within the crypto client. And I'm sure you're aware of this architecture as developers here. So what's actually happening on chain here? So we're going to bring in kind of this orange or goldish aspect here. So now TX Core and stablecoin issuer have their own reserve address, which is managed via ARC. So we have the top here, and then what's happening on chain. So stablecoin issuer calls ARC to use its reserve address to mint to TX Core's reserve address through the USDC smart contracts mint function. So all of this is happening whenever we mint a token on chain, and we abstract away all of these complexities. So then from there, TX Core can send the funds to the customer address. As we mentioned, that's kind of the last step of the process, and we went over in the beginning. So then what happens in terms of burning, or when someone wants their $1 back and going out to the traditional fiat world? What we have to do is burn USDC, or effectively remove it from the total supply. So it starts with TX Core again, and this effectuates the process to send US dollars back to the customer. So to do so, TX Core needs to, again, think of this synergy between TX Core and what's happening in the database. It needs to subtract some USD from its balances table, and then it burns some USDC on chain before doing so. So this is that effectuation of process whenever something occurs underneath the hood. So TX Core, you think about stablecoin issuer, what that meant. We don't need a stablecoin issuer when we're burning a token. That's to issue USDC. So what TX Core does is it goes directly to ARC and calls the appropriate crypto clients from ARC to be able to burn the USDC on chain, depending on whatever chain that USDC is on. So again, what's actually happening on chain here is TX Core calls ARC to use its reserve address to burn the USDC through the USDC's smart contract burn function. So why are we telling you all of this here? Why are we showcasing this underlying architecture and all of these complexities that occur whenever money comes into the system and leaves the system? It's because we've built all of this for you to enable this on-chain digital dollar and remove all of these complexities to do so. So think of USDC platform as essentially this multi-chain tooling for devs, for you all, to abstract away the multi-chain complexities that you can build on top of and deploy your app and utilize all of these chains at the same time. So now what I want to do here is actually turn the presentation focused back to you here and help you guys understand your path to impact in the crypto ecosystem. So as you heard many times, Jeremy mentioned, we're transitioning from this speculation phase within crypto to this utility phase, where we have use cases that are enabling the actual use of crypto instead of just earning money from crypto. And this is going to help onboard the masses. So we get to start pointing our attention outwards instead of inwards and making these small iterative upgrades, and start thinking about what do actual users and mainstream, what do they need to bring them on chain into this ecosystem? So my ask for you here is to try to not contribute to the speculation side of things. Let's move past that and begin to contribute to utility within the ecosystem. So I'm going to give you 5 kind of words of advice here to close. So firstly here, lead and examine life. So question the current financial system and ask yourself, is there a better way forward? Is there a more equitable, more inclusive, more digitally native way forward? This is all the promise of crypto. Inquire within to make an impact. So after you understand, the current issues with our financial system and educate yourself on this alternative way, or sometimes I like to look at this ecosystem as an extension of the traditional financial system. A lot of times we hear the narrative of, oh, this is going to replace the traditional financial system. And this is what ticks off the regulators and gets them worried and scared of what's happening. But if we change the narrative to, this is just an extension to the US dollar, this is enabling us to upgrade the US dollar on chain to make it a utility asset and to be used for different purposes. So think of this ecosystem as an extension of our traditional financial system rather than a replacement. And I'm from DC, live in DC now, and I guarantee you that is what the regulators want to hear. So take time to inquire within to identify, what project can you build on the USDC platform to help move society forward. Express yourself through your code. You have a unique opportunity here. You guys are very skilled. There's only a small portion of people have your skill set. So code is free speech. Use your code to express yourself and build something that will be game-changing and everlasting, something that can only come through you. And build a community of contributors. So there's a popular quote, and I think we heard it a couple days ago on stage. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So open source and composability is what this industry is all about. So find your tribe and build something special together. Start a DAO. Do whatever you need to do to build a community and make an impact that way. And lastly here, be a role model, be a leader. So this means share your knowledge, share your best practices, influence others to help make this world a better place. As I mentioned, we have a unique opportunity within Web3. We're re-architecting the fundamental levels of the internet. And we can do this in a better way. And this is kind of the theme of this conference. So just being here on Dev Day at Converge in this last session shows that you're well positioned to make an impact in this ecosystem and help change the world by being here and doing this. So join our mission to build on the USDC platform. And what is our mission? To raise global economic prosperity through the frictionless exchange of financial value. This summarizes eloquently everything we just covered. So there's two VCs in this space and some data points thrown around here, Electric Capital and Redpoint. They mentioned that there's about 30 million devs in the world across all programming languages, 30 million. But there's only about 20,000 Web3 devs across Solidity, Rust, any type of programming language used in Web3, 20,000 compared to 30 million. That just screams opportunity. That's not even 0.1%. We have a huge impact we can make here. And we need more and more Web3 devs coming into the ecosystem, transitioning from Web2 to Web3. And we're seeing this intellectual capital starting to contribute to this space. So lastly here in closing, if you haven't already, join our developer Discord, engage in these conversations. You can use the QR code here. Also sign up for our sandbox. The sandbox is ideal to quickly familiarize yourself with the API requests and response formats and building prototypes within the sandbox environment. But these sandbox APIs, they match perfectly with our production APIs. So you can write code against the sandbox environment and eventually just switch over to the production endpoints when you're ready. So go ahead and sign up and get started here and build on the USDC platform. So thank you all for staying here this late and watching this on a Friday. I'm excited for the weekend. I'm sure you all are as well. I'm looking forward to seeing what you build on the USDC platform. Reach out whenever you do deploy something or showcase what you're deploying to me, and reach out as you see here. Or my Twitter is Jack of Crypto if you want to look at me there. JACKOF Crypto. I'd love to engage and keep this conversation going and help out wherever possible. So thank you all for attending. Does anybody have any questions? I can barely see you all. Go ahead.
You're talking about the minting and burning of USDC. Is there a minimum requirement to mint before it's sent over to?
Minimum requirement to mint on chain?
That's right, yeah.
Are you thinking of like microtransactions or some type of use case in that factor?
I want to know, when you say you're going to mint $2, and let's say that 10 people minted $2, when exactly is that transferred towards the reserve?
I'm sorry, when exactly is it what?
When exactly is what's minted transferred over to the reserve where you guys hold the actual cash?
Yeah, so as we mentioned in the process, I'm not sure the exact minimum. We can follow up with you on that, but as money comes in and we move that to our reserves and different bank accounts and put it in treasuries, what have you, then we upgrade or mint on chain from there. So it could be any amount that happens, but the same effectuation occurs, and that all happens pretty instantaneously. I don't know the exact times of that. I know when the money comes in from the traditional world, it takes 1 to 3 days or so to actually get into our system. But once that happens, then this seamless, frictionless transfer of events occurs, and all of that happens underneath the hood.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. I think we had one more question here. No? All right, I don't want to hold you guys. Oh, one more.
There's actually 2 more.
Oh, yeah, I can barely see.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. So just kind of in the spirit of that last slide about financial inclusion and driving new use cases, I was wondering, does Circle have a list of like cash in, cash out providers like outside of Circle? Because that's kind of like one of the main barriers to deploying applications in emerging markets is being able to actually move money in and out of the system. Is there maybe like a place on the Circle website where we can see like the list of vendors that say support cash out in Brazil to mobile money?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we have the ecosystem list and other areas on circle.com, and feel free to research there. But if it touches USDC, we would have that listed there, but not just any other application that enables the transfer to fiat currencies all around internationally. If it touches USDC in some aspect, it's part of our ecosystem, and we have it listed. But if not, I'm sure there's plenty of other resources to search that, but not if it doesn't touch USDC. It's not, showcased. Yep.
Yeah, I like the fact that you have this evangelical attitude of trying to get USDC development more in some of the mainstream around the world. So would you be able to be open to being invited to outside of the US, excuse me, like in Asia or to mentor or just be a speaker? Or?
I couldn't quite hear. It was USDC and other coins outside or other tokens outside of just the US dollar?
Yeah. I mean, like,
yeah.
Would you be open to be like a mentor speaker to Thailand, Philippines, Cambodia? I mean, yes, like a speaker mentor. I mean, it seems like you're the kind of person that you believe what you do. You're not doing it just because you're getting paid, good money. You're doing it because I think you can make a change in the world.
Oh, thank you. I love to hear it. That's amazing. Yes. I'm open to any speaking opportunities. This is actually the first time on stage, so if you guys have any opportunities, let me know. Thank you. And just a plug, we actually did launch Eurocoin, so we are expanding internationally that way. Think upgrading the dollar on-chain is USDC. We're upgrading the euro on-chain to EuroC, and we're going to expand as well from there across different chains and different currencies. So my time is up. Thank you all for attending. Have a great weekend. Thank you.